Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room live stream with myself, Kev, Jay, and Tossin. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this wonderful Tuesday evening. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and make sure your notifications are on so you never miss out on any of the content that we will have. But interesting news coming out today, obviously, with a lot of noise around the Bundesliga stars Omar Marmoush and Karim Adeyemi in Liverpool's pursuit, we assume, for a long-term replacement to Mohamed Salah. Hopefully it's not an immediate replacement, considering talks are ongoing for contracts as it is at the moment. Following Quansah's 5-year deal that was signed the other day, Konate is now next in line to get his deal, so that's going to be absolutely monstrous as well. Two big young centre-backs getting tied down to long-term deals will really help us going forward. And then former Irish international Richard Dunne, the everlasting amazing footballer that he was, has a couple of opinions on Kelleher and Alisson Becker, considering that he doesn't really see a difference between the two. Now, I'm sure patriotism has an awful lot to do with that particular opinion, but we'll get into that a little bit further on. And obviously then if anybody has any questions in the chat, please feel free to throw them in and we'll try and get to all of them. But without further ado, we'll jump into everything. And Tossin, I'll throw it over to yourself first in relation to this. A lot of noise coming out from Sky Sports Germany, from Florian Plettenberg, and then Jay Berger as well, another one. I can't remember his first name for the life of me. Stating that Liverpool are very much interested in Omar Marmoush, who's the current forward for Eintracht Frankfurt, currently on an absolute tear to start the season, and also Karim Adeyemi from Borussia Dortmund as well, as potential replacements for Mohamed Salah. Now, given the two players' profiles, and we'll jump into them in a little minute because I have, as Jay loves it, all of his maths charts and everything so that we can look at and see the comparisons between the players. But what we'll do is we'll have a look at them in a moment once I get everybody's opinions on them players. But Tossin, give me a couple of your opinions on Adeyemi as possible replacement. Maybe his injury record is a little bit of a concern, and obviously Omar Marmoush is an Egyptian compatriot of Salah, and he's on an absolute tear to start this season as well. Nearly a goal and an assist every game.
Yeah, I want to say that Marmoush has impressed me, given what I've seen from him at Wolfsburg and how he's gradually gone up in terms of his development. I will lie if I say I thought he was going to hit this ceiling, because I thought, it was going to be in his last season in Wolfsburg, when he scored about 6 goals thereabout. I began to have concerns because I thought maybe this was going to be who he was, because very wasteful player. But I think spending a bit of time with Mo, spending a bit of time with Trezeguet as well, he's sort of he's developed himself in terms of the attributes.
Is he gone? Or is he still there?
Right, your vision.
In front of the ruthless
well, he's still there. Oh, he's gone again.
Yeah. Yes. She's on the way, however.
Okay, Tossin, I'm going to pull you out of this just while you're on the phone. You can jump back in again in a minute. That is madness. That is absolute madness. Jay, I'll throw it over to you because, God, if this isn't an eventful stream today. Karim Adeyemi, obviously, injury record is a little bit of a concern. And then, obviously, we have just a lightning start from Marmoush as well. If you had to pick one of them, like, I think we've obviously discussed it, myself and yourself have mentioned it a couple of times. If it's Marmoush that comes in, you'd reckon one of the strikers is going. And obviously, we all kind of think that the nail on the head with that is probably Nunez based on minutes. But I think it could actually be Jota, myself personally. Not because of lack of form, but just purely profile of how Marmoush plays off a bigger, stronger, faster striker. But give me a couple of your thoughts on both of them. Obviously, Adeyemi with his injury record might be a bit of a worry, but then obviously Michael Edwards and the Nerds clearly have yet to get many things wrong.
I don't know, mate. I'm just taking this call from Just Eat. Adeyemi, mate, I wouldn't touch him. His numbers are really poor. His injury record, like you said, I think he's only played like 20 games in the league. which to me is a concern. It's pretty much half a season, isn't it?
About that, yeah.
Eh?
It's about that, yeah. It's about 20
Yeah,
games in the league. I'm going to have a look at the injury record now.
We've had our fair share of players with injuries, and we've only just got shut of them. Keita, Ox. So to bring another one in whose numbers aren't that impressive anyway, I think Adeyemi's a bit too much of a speed merchant. And I know a few people were excited about his performance the other day. It was against Celtic. You know, no disrespect to Celtic, but the Champions League's a bit of a higher level than, you know, what they used to. And even Brendan Rodgers alluded to it. He basically conceded, we're not good enough to be in the Champions League. So I wouldn't rave about that hat-trick too much. Marmoush had a good season last season. This season, obviously, he's on fire. I think he scored more goals than games he's played. We're pointing out, obviously, it's still very early in the season. Richarlison used to do this. He used to play 10 games, score 10 goals, then wouldn't score again for the rest of the season. So I don't feel like a striker is an area we need right now, addressing. I think that's probably where we're most stacked. So unless someone was going, I wouldn't even entertain getting a forward, to be honest. I'd definitely be prioritising a left-footed centre-half. And obviously a DM. I think we're a bit short in midfield in terms of quality if one of the main lads was to get injured.
Yeah, no, it's funny because just the way that we would be viewing the players, because obviously we went for Zubimendi in the summer, and then obviously that fell through because he likes to look at mountains and eat his paella and all that shite, realistically. And now he might want to go to Manchester City, and I'm like, yeah, he'd do well in the Championship, all right, next year when they're down there. But I think he could be a long-term Salah replacement, Marmoush, purely because this is the type of year, this is the same kind of age that we got Salah at, and the same. I'm going to toss him back in here because he's off his board meeting phone call. It's the same kind of age that we got Salah in, and it was just after he was just right on the precipice of exploding at Roma, and he had a very, very big season at Roma just before joining us. And Marmoush is kind of having that season last season. He's 17 goals and 6 assists. I think he could be playing the right wing because he's such a creative freak, and he plays either as a right or left midfielder, or he plays as a second striker alongside a big dude up front. And we've a 6'4" chaos monster in Núñez that could easily feed off of him if he kicks on and if he stays this season. Kev, I'll get your opinions on the two of them as well. Obviously, Adeyemi, I have his injury record here, and there's at least one a season. 8 games missed last season, and then prior to that, there was another 9 games, 10 games missed there. Then in 22-23, another 14 or 15 games there. And then when he was with Salzburg, he missed a good plethora of about 20 games as well between 1920 to 21-22. So it's not exactly a fruitful venture looking at those injury records. And again, as Jay mentioned, he seems like a bit of a pace merchant. Where do you see us possibly venturing? Do you see us maybe going for a forward in the expectation that Salah's going to be leaving in a year or two, or should we begin shoring up? I suppose best of both worlds, shore up both sides, but get a centre half or a DM and him would probably be the ideal way to go about it.
Oh, it would be. The way I look at this is, and I looked at this tonight, I looked at the 4 seasons before Salah joined us. I looked at his appearances and goals and assists. So his overall record in all of them, he was averaging 39.5 games with an average of 22.5 goals or assists. And that's over those 4 seasons. He's consistently getting over 15 goal opportunities. And that was in the season, and that's the lowest one where he goes from Chelsea to Fiorentina. The rest at Ball, 40-19, 42-22 at Roma, and then 41-34 before he comes to us. The only one who's coming close to that, and is exactly what you said, Stephen, is that you look at it's a similar age to what Salah is coming in as what Marmoush is, and you look at his last 2 seasons, and this last season and this, he's already got 15 goals and assists this season already within 8-9 games. And last year he got 41. He got 23 goals and assists, 17 and 6. So that's similar to the last 2 where he scored more in his last season, more in the Roma season of Salah, and he's on level to probably match the 34 before he joins Liverpool. My issue is that majority of those goals are coming from a centre forward position and not necessarily from the winger position. It's more of a left wing, if any, he's getting any goals and assists from, not on the right. And the issue I've got, and the argument is of finding a replacement, is you need someone who's hitting those numbers. And the only one, is there anyone in world football at the minute who's hitting those kind of numbers I mentioned for Salah at the start of this? And I don't think there's, quite frankly, anyone out there. So that's why I think we're looking at other alternatives, to people who can be pushed into a right wing position or can be made into a right wing. But predominantly, he's going to be a centre forward and it's going to take over the place. And I'd rather be finding a replacement at left back, which I think we have a huge weakness at, and a centre mid, than necessarily putting all our eggs in one basket with one of these two, because I don't think at the minute there's anyone out there. Trying to replace Salah's numbers now is hard. It's difficult. Replacing his numbers before he joined us is even more difficult, because that's where, before he even hits the season, before he gets into the realms of what he does at Liverpool, which is unbelievable, by the way. But for me, Adeyemi seems a bit like a Nunes on the wing. Has loads of chances, but got a bit of speed, but can't put them away, or can put them away, but it's against a National League team in Celtic. So people get over wax lyrical about it for me. But Marmoush, again, he's playing well this season. He's played well last season. Can he keep that up? And that's the arguments I've got for anyone that comes in, because they've got to be hitting similar numbers or close to. And I don't think there's anyone out there that we can actually put our eggs in one basket and go, he's definitely the person. So that's why we're going to hear a variety, and there'll be opinions in the chat to indicate that we should be Bakayoko, it could be someone else, and you know what I mean. And it's an argument that we're going to have until it is moved on. But is it because of where we are with Slot? Are we looking at a more of a centre forward, and does that then help Nunes by bringing in someone who can play as a second striker that can help and adapt to Nunes? I don't know whether that is what Slot's got in mind, but there's, for me at the minute, if you're asking me, I think we personally need to be venturing elsewhere and looking for other players who may be hitting the numbers regularly over a 4-year period rather than the last 2. Sorry for the roundabout way. No. It's I completely agree with you. I think more so. Similarly, if anybody has ever watched the movie Moneyball way back in the day, fantastic movie for anybody who hasn't watched it. Even if you're not a sports fan, if you just enjoy a good movie, it's a good movie. The way that to explain it to anybody that hasn't seen it, the Oakland A's lost 3 of their biggest players to teams that could basically afford to pay them big money. So rather than going and try and replicating them, you'll hear this phrase often used when it comes to Liverpool and how they go about their businesses, replacing him in the aggregate. So rather than signing somebody that could replace Salah directly, they'd sign players that could contribute in such a way that you end up replacing his numbers in the aggregate rather than the player himself, which is basically what they'll probably end up trying to do. Because Salah's a unicorn. There's no getting around that. He is one of one, and probably one of the greatest players, is one of the greatest players to have ever played in the Premier League. So it is one of them that's just, I think it'll be a replacement in the aggregate, Kev, where you'll probably get maybe 2 players for 80 million combined that they'll contribute goals and assists, and then Nunes, Jota, Gakpo, Diaz will contribute them across the board as well, and you replace Salah that way. You replace the output rather than the player. So you're replacing them with 2 players who will average about 20 goals and assists per season. So that's one way of dealing with it, which is, similar to what he was doing. You know what I mean? Even if he gets someone who can replace him before he joined us, which was 22.5 goals and assists, you know what I mean? That's, that's one way around it, do you know what I mean? But, I just think it's difficult just to find that one player who's reaching that at the minute. It
is. And I think, as Jay mentioned, we're better focused elsewhere. it's a left side, a centre half, a left side, a left back, as you mentioned, because you definitely love seeing Kostas Tsimikas playing there, and it doesn't give you heart palpitations. But it's one of them that I think probably we would. It's where they view it on the list, because the lads that are doing the transfers and everything like that are going to view it on a list of who we're buying wins rather than buying players. So who's going to sit on the list? Is it going to be a left back that will buy us more wins than DM, based on who's available, and is it going to be a centre back that will buy us more wins than them, let us keep more clean sheets, allow us to rest the big guys, so on and so forth. There's so many variables in it. Just having a quick look down through some of the comments here, and we'll talk about some of the contracts before we get on to Konate's one. Joe Queen's mentioning here, what's your feeling on Trent Alexander-Arnold's contract? Tossin, I'll throw it over to yourself, providing we don't get any phone calls in the meantime. I know you're a busy man, but what's your opinion on Trent re-signing, with a lot of this news coming out from Real Madrid saying that they're looking at him, they'll maybe offer him a pre-contract in January for next summer. There's news also that's come out of Madrid now very recently today that says that they're not going to look at getting anybody in January. Doesn't mean that they're not going to sign a pre-contract for the summer, but where are you regarding Trent's contract, and how likely do you feel that it gets done, if at all?
Let me first apologize to the guys and to everyone watching the stream. That was very important to do that. I normally don't get work calls after 7 p.m., but today there's been a lot of moving parts they've had to sort out, so that's the reason why the call had to come. And I have one of my team members in transit, so everyone's calling to ask where the person is. So I hope my apologies are accepted, because I saw
not a problem, saying, not a problem. Work comes first. You got to pay the bills.
So I think one thing I've said before, and I think Kev was on the stream when I said it, you have to get Trent done. I don't know how we're going to do it. We have to get it done. And I think it was the same situation with Mo, the last contract when he signed the extension. We all had palpitations. Some of us were holding candles at midnight and praying that he signed the extension, and he got signed. So I think with Trent, he's going to get signed. I'm not worried about Trent at all. This guy wants to be a Liverpool captain. It feels like Steven Gerrard all over again. The only difference now is that we're going to win titles. He's not leaving because we're not going to win. He knows we're going to win. He knows the project is great. He knows the quality of players who go around. I think it will just be down to the number, maybe how much it's going to be in terms of the fine lines. Is he going to be the highest earner at the football club? I remember saying it earlier that I thought that my concern was, I'm not sure Salah was going to get done, and that I was thinking it was going to be Van Dijk and Trent that were going to get done, and that my concern was Salah, because I think, given his agent, I'm not so confident, especially given the history we have with the agent, and given how things have changed now at the football club. I know what that means. The football club I consult with just fired their coach, and I know what it means in terms of meeting with why we had to make that decision, because some players were complaining they were not getting game time, we were not getting results. So this is a different case entirely. We're getting results, but the players getting older, and I know some people were grumbling, especially this last few games where it's not looked like the old Salah of old, where people have said, hey, come on, it looks like, is this not the sign that we should have taken the money? But I think with Trent, it's inevitable. There's only one Trent Alexander-Arnold. That's the best right back in the world. You're gonna sign him. We're gonna do everything. We're gonna pull out all the stops. I know the body language and what they're gonna say outside is gonna be different. Before we fired our coach, we told everybody on Sunday that everything was okay. We fired him on Monday. So if the body language is not looking good from the football club, that's what I think the last contract Trent signed, I don't think we heard anything about it. Everything was just in silence, and we just heard that he signed a new contract. It's the same thing with Ibou now. Nobody heard anything about Ibou signing a new contract, and now we know that he's going to sign a new contract. Same with Jarell. Liverpool Football Club always takes care of its own. That's one thing I like about football club. We'll take care of our own. I think that contract gets done. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's going to get done.
Yeah, I think it's going to get done, but I think he's being a bit of a prat about it as well. If I'm being a bit frank about it, to be perfectly honest, Jay, like we've said many times in the group chat that if just we're sick of it at this point, just sign the contract or go down to the under-21s at this point. It's basically that, and if he's away flirting with Real Madrid and having a circle jerk with Jude Bellingham while he's away on international duty, like it's. Are you concerned that maybe this trip on international duty and Real Madrid coming to visit us soon may turn his head, and the fact that he's also just rejected every contract that's been handed to them and hasn't answered the latest one that was sent last week?
No, I think them two have been playing soggy biscuit for a while, haven't they? And we didn't mind too much when we thought we were getting Bellingham, but now it's on the other foot. We don't like it, do we? Do you know what I mean? We were all harbouring for Bellingham and Enzo and Trent there, flirting with him, and now it's on the other foot. We don't like it. Look, where I stand with it is, if Trent had 3 years on his deal and Real Madrid come in and say he's 100 million or whatever the weight is, 120, whatever, and Trent turns around and says, I want to go, I'm all right with that. I genuinely am. He's won everything. He might want a new challenge, fair enough. Leaving on a free is a proper rat move for a local lad because he's our own. Do you know what I mean? It's different. I think that ruins his legacy because he knows he's a £100 million player and he knows if he goes for free, he's basically shitting on us. If he hasn't signed that deal by January, I would start playing Conor Bradley and I'd leave Trent out the side. As good as a player as he is, if he's not the future, there's no point continuing to play him. I'd rather develop Bradley at right back and at least get a gist of what the side will be without Trent. Because if he signs a pre-contract with Real Madrid, he's gone. Do you know what I mean? There's no point in us continuing playing with him because we're not going to be next year. I'd rather us focus on what we're going to be next season without him. Yeah. The thing about Trent is he is the best passer of the ball in probably world football. The only other player similar is De Bruyne, who is an actual midfielder. I do think he'll sign. I think he's probably digging his heels in a bit because he wants more money. And I imagine Real Madrid will probably offer him a more lucrative deal, especially considering if he was free, he'll get a mad signing on fee. So I think numbers like that can turn any player's head, but he is a local lad. And I'm just hoping myself, probably being a local lad, that he will stay. He's just probably trying to get the best deal that he can, which I don't blame him for. He is that important for us. And I imagine he's trying to get the same pay as Salah, which, to be honest, I kind of think is fair, to be honest. Yeah. I know a lot of people don't want to pay him that type of money, but why? Is there another passer in world football like him? No one whatsoever. So if you gave me an option of the three, which one to go with, it'd be Salah for me. I think his deal is the hardest because of his age and the fact he is already the highest paid player, which means he'd then be on an even bigger wage. Because if you put Trent at 300 grand now, Salah's already on that. Giving Salah a new deal, he's going to need at least 400 grand a week, sorry. So that makes his deal a little bit more complicated for me. The only thing with Trent is if he does go on 300k or whatever, it's unlikely to be his last deal. He's going to need another one, which means boost again. So, I don't know, mate. My heart says he stays. Part of me, I think, his head could be turned, but we all thought that about Jude and he went to Real Madrid in the end. So, unfortunately, mate, we're just going to have to sit it out and wait, and it's just another Liverpool drama as usual.
Yeah, the way that I look at it is he either has the opportunity to be a massive hypocrite in what he said with, it means more, I want to be a Liverpool captain, this is my hometown club. And I think if he left, if he left during the summer after Klopp announced like, this is my last season, I'm done, cool, fine. We get Dosh out of it, he gets to go, as you said, but leaving on a free just leaves a bit of a sour taste in the mouth. And he's seen what's happened with Michael Owen and how that all turned out. And he's obviously knows about, I think it was McManaman back in the day as well, of the shit that he caused. So it's it's worrying in one sense, but he's obviously it's a combination of everything. He's digging his heels in to try and get the best deal possible. But as you said, Jay, we have to factor in the fact that this isn't his last deal. He's going to sign a 5-6 year deal. He's going to get another one after that, because the way that a player like him will age very gracefully. He doesn't rely on pace. He doesn't rely on strength. He relies on technical ability. That'll age him absolutely fantastically, and he'll get another 3 or 4 year deal by the time he hits 30. So you need to balance it. He's on 180k a week at the minute, and Van Dijk is on 220, and Salah's on 350. But after bonuses, I think Salah's on $1 million a week. Eye-watering fucking money. But Kev, and as another local lad, we'll call you. Where's your opinion on this? Would you be in a similar boat to Jay, that it's a bit of a shitty move to go on a free, or can you understand it, or how, between yourself and Jay, obviously it's a bit of a pulse on the local sort of thought process with the fans there. So how would you portray it?
I couldn't put it better than the way Jade put it before. The only thing I'll add a few little bits to it. I think he's put himself in a fantastic position, and that's due. Some will say it's down to the actual club. I think it's down to a couple of things. You look at 2 years out, they're probably waiting for Klopp to sign a new deal. He doesn't, and then he blows up at the end of last season, and then put in the mix. Well, what's happening when he goes? So he's put himself in a great position through no fault of anyone's, apart from, you could say the club at some point. But you name me a big star who's going to sign a deal when you know that the main person is going, and what's going to be left. So he's put himself in a fantastic position. I think the club don't want to give the three of them and put them on over 300 grand each. That's me personally. I think the way I would do it, and I think the way the club should be looking at it, is trying to do Trent over 6 years, but in 2 years' time, we'll review it and we'll make it the top earner, by which stage Salah goes and possibly Van Dijk goes. And you put probably Van Dijk up to 300 grand a week. I just don't think, I think they're trying to, I think it does get done. I just think we're trying to do it on the cheap, as we always try and do. And I feel sorry for Richard Hughes, because he's come into all this and he's trying to deal with it now. And at the end of the day, people will turn around and go, well, why are we signing Konate and Quansah? Get the easy ones out of the way, and possibly the way it should be done, and then move on to these, because these are going to be tricky and it's going to take a little bit longer. But I can't argue with what yourself and what Jay have said already about it, and especially Jay in the way he said it. But I just had those few little things on him. He's put himself he's in a powerful position, and he'll ask for the most. But I think eventually it will get done. But I think it could be 2 out of the 3, possibly.
Yeah, I get the feeling that Salah probably goes, personally.
Yeah,
and
same.
the reason that I say that is because while he still has the end product this season, I guarantee you Michael Edwards is looking at every game, and Richard Hughes is looking at every game, and they're seeing that last wayward pass, and that it's happened a little bit more often than it should, and that Núñez could have been in multiple times. I think 6 or 7 times that last pass to Núñez when he's been on the break has been maybe 4 yards short, and it's hit a centre back before it's hit Núñez. And whether Núñez would have scored it or not, that's a debate that we'll have until the ends of time. But it's the fact that the pass isn't reaching him to create that opportunity. And I noticed it, and maybe this is just me, but the last game against Wolves, where was it Wolves? No, Palace. Apologies. Last game against Palace, Salah was away on a break on the right hand side, and somebody was charging through the middle. I don't know who it was. I can't remember. But something that stuck out to me is Salah looked up, seen the player chasing him down, and Salah 2 years ago would have taken that ball and ran away from him. He couldn't get away from him, and he had to pass it. And that to me was alarm bells going off in my head. I'm like, he's lost more than a touch of pace here. I think he's lost a fair bit of pace here in age, and maybe he's just not as to sit now. Maybe he gets a second wind and all of a sudden he lights the world on fire. But I think his end production is saving him at the moment purely because he's not really making that last pass. He could have 6 or 7 more assists at that point.
It's not that. I agree with you, mate. Like, the thing is, he can stink the place out. Because I think he does a lot of the time, to be honest. I think his last 3 games, he's been terrible. But then you'll win the game 2-0 and he's got the goal and he's got the assist. And that's all anyone looks at. They go, oh, well, his numbers. But if you look at his actual overall performance in the game, generally it's quite poor. And I think I know what run you're on about because I've seen that myself. I think it might have been Kelleher he was up against. Bournemouth, was it? But I know what you're on about because I remember thinking, why haven't you run up the line there? And he looked like he just didn't have the pace in his legs anymore.
That was what made me very worried because I was like, Salah might have to change his play style a little bit here. And then obviously at that point, because he needs to make that pass, he's doing it on his weak foot because he's the most left-footed player outside of Harvey Elliott on that team that just refuses to use his right foot when he can. And that's why the passes have been a bit wayward and they've just not been there. And that's what's very worrying for me as to if a deal is going to be offered for him. They may just let him walk. Now, in saying that, letting him walk allows you to hand Trent and Verge 300 grand a week for the next number of years. And to be perfectly honest with you, if that's a sacrifice that the club needs to make, I'd be fine with it personally, because then you can go and find somebody that can come in, or you have your Chiesa there as well once he gets properly up to speed too. And there's plenty of options there, I feel. It's just a bit worrying to have a look at it. Something that I wanted to point out just in the chat as well, with Anton Anonymous here. Expiring contracts is solely down to Klopp. Should have got talks underway when they had 2 years left, long before he decided to leave Liverpool. So Klopp announced that he was leaving Liverpool in November. 2 years ago or a year ago, they would have had 2 years left and they would have probably started talking about it when the season started. If you think for a second Klopp is going to make that decision on a whim that he's going to leave Liverpool Football Club at the end of the season, you're madness. And he also is not going to go and sit down in front of the three of them and say, yeah, I'm going to be your manager for the next while and I'm going to plan on renewing as well, because he just sit and lie straight to their face, and that's not the relationship that's been fostered in the club. So the club couldn't guarantee that Klopp would have been there. And if they can't guarantee Klopp isn't going to be there, well, then who are they going to get in for the next guy? So they didn't sign anything last summer because Klopp wasn't going to be able to sit down and do that with them. Whether or not they knew about that is a different thing. Then he announces in November he's going to the club. Then the public announcement is January, which is 18 months away. Normally when you'd see a contract start to get looked at again. That couldn't happen because now everything's up in arms about who is the next manager going to be. And even if the club say, we've got our man, this is him, and show them a fucking highlight video, they're still going to want to play in the system before they decide on whether or not they're going to stay. It's basically that's all that it is. Like it has absolutely nothing got to do with the club. It is, funnily enough, I know you mentioned it's down to Klopp. It kind of is, to be fair. And saying that it's negligence to leave it there, they literally had their hands tied. There was no other way that the club could have approached this, unfortunately. We're going to move on now to... Yeah.
Sorry, Steve,
go ahead.
I think people need to understand something, just like you said. It's it was... I know some people have said it's front office malpractice, that how did we get ourselves in this situation where 3 of our most important players... Sometimes this is the first time I'm seeing this happen at this level in football. I've seen it in American football maybe once or twice. I've seen it in basketball maybe once or twice. But in football, this is the first time it's happened. And it's only happened because the manager, who the players knew very well, was leaving. And I think they had plans in place to sign contract extensions. But the moment Jurgen came out with that news, I think everybody just said, you sit with your agent. Your agent says, okay, guys, let's wait. Let's hear what the new guy has to say. Let's see what the new guys are doing. Let's evaluate. Let's weigh it and see whether it's the same thing as what it is. It's no longer back then back in the days where players will stay loyal to the club regardless of the situation. Sometimes players want to see, will the success be sustainable? Will it be in a situation whereby when it's time for me to go or when I want to move on, the club will not stand in my way? So I think as fans, we also need to understand that aspect, that as much as these people maybe they are fucking with our feelings in some type of way. It's a business for them, and we have to understand and accept the business side of things.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's a business at the end of the day, and obviously it's a business that plays on our heartstrings. It's the joys of being a Liverpool football fan. If your arsehole isn't perpetually puckered, you're not doing it right. That's just the way that I go about it. We're going to move on to Konate's upcoming deal and how that's going to affect us going forward as well, because I think that's absolutely fantastic. Before we get into that, though, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure your notifications are on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out as well. Currently over 3,000 people here watching at the moment. If you're watching on X or Twitter, thanks to Elon after that stupid name change, make sure to jump over to our YouTube channel so that you never miss out on anything, and make sure to leave a like and subscribe while you're there as well. But Ibrahima Konate, Ibou, the big man in the middle, that between himself and Van Dijk are the only two players in Europe's top 5 leagues with an aerial dual win percentage of 85.7% or more, which is nuts considering the competition that he faces. And a lot, and better than Saliba and Gabriel, let me tell you that for a fact. And Liverpool having the best. How many goals have we conceded so far this season? 4 goals this season in all competitions. 1 against Wolves, 1 against Forest, 1 against West Ham, and 1 against Milan, and that's it. And to be honest, you can take the one from Wolves and put it in a pocket, because that goal is never happening again. And if Konate thinks he deserves man of the match for that game, he's in fucking dreamland. Thanks to that mistake. But we're going to just have a quick chat about his contract and how that's going to affect us going forward. Because if anything, realistically, Kev, Slot's winning percentage and how he's dominating and winning games, even winning ugly, that's a positive for anybody looking to renew a contract, because we know the wins are there. Liverpool are sat at the top of the Premier League. We have a 2-goal difference this time last season compared to our goal difference last season, and we're, I think, 2 or 3 points ahead of where we were last season as well. I can't remember the exact numbers on it. So realistically, as Tosin mentioned, is the success sustainable? And it appears to be. So this is why these players are re-signing. Where do you see Konate fitting in? How long do you think the deal will be, and how much do you think he'll be on? I'm going to check now what he's on at the moment, and we'll just have a quick look. He is currently on. Where is he? He's on 70 grand a year. Pennies. Stuff you'd find, lint you'd find down the back of the couch.
I wish I could find that behind my couch.
Whose fucking couch?
Okay, no.
Top Bowley's.
Consider how much Chelsea's in. But yeah, Kev, go on. Tell me how you think it's going to. How long do you think he'll be here, and what way do you think he's going to go?
He's 25 now, isn't he? 25, yeah. Right? 6-year deal. Last year being an option, and he'll probably double his money to what Jay's just put in the chat, which is probably around about 150k. Gets him settled down. Happy days. Thinks he should be the French captain because Mbappe's not there, even though he hardly ever plays for France. But probably has a similar look to what he was looking at when he was at Wolves, when we played against Wolves. So it's all looking good for him. I'd offer him a 5-year deal. I think he started well. I think it's great to see a consistent Konate and not a broken down Konate after about 3 or 4 games. And we're seeing the big difference in that. And I've said at the start of the season, the biggest thing I wanted to see is how our medical team now, in comparison to what we've had with Klopp, and already it's bode well. Don't get me wrong, we're only less than a third of a season in, but already we're getting more games out of Konate. We look a lot stronger when we haven't got those niggling injuries, although there is a concern with Alisson with them, which I don't like. But apart from that, you can't ask for more. He didn't start against Ipswich. He comes on at half time and has dominated since he's been in. I think that's probably the kick up the backside they probably needed to go, look, if you're not playing well, you're out. So I think it bodes well for us. I think we're getting someone who's coming into the prime. We're getting someone who's an absolute monster. And to have him and Virgil at the minute, Virgil can play for the next 4 years. That's just based on his positional sense. I haven't seen a centre back who plays as positionally well as what he does, and that bodes well. And if you've got someone like Konate around you who's got the pace, we're in a great position. Do you know what I mean? And to tie him down, can't ask for more.
Yeah, and that, Jay, could lead into Van Dijk signing, because he's like, okay, well, I know my Batman and Robin are going to be together for another couple of years here, so this makes my job a whole lot easier, and I'm not losing my right-hand man immediately, and I don't have to retool with somebody else. It's a domino effect that will start allowing everything else to fall into place too. And with Trent too, him having his backup defense there on his left-hand side for any tricky wingers that he'll know he'll have covered there, and make his job a whole lot easier too.
Yeah, it'll definitely give him a sense of security, because any centre-half will tell you like to keep your partner. That's one area of the pitch you don't really want to be shuffling with. You want to have your two centre-halves nailed on. So yeah. Virgil want to know that he's got his compatriot with him for good. And like you said, lad, same goes for Trent. That's 3 you're back 4. The likelihood is Robbo's at the end. He's not going to be getting a new deal now, if we're being realistic. We're probably going to be going for a centre-half who can play at left-back, someone of like a Vardy or Bastoni mould. So yeah, I think that does help with Virg. I love Konate. If Konate can stay fit, he's as good as anyone for me. So's about our baby. His long passing even this season's been a lot better. He got an assist the other week from like a 30-40 yard pass. He's bringing the ball out like Matip. Well, not as good as Matip, but he is coming out with the ball. I love Ibou. Getting that deal done is what we should have been doing with Virg, Trent and Salah. When you've got 2 years left, that's when them discussions should be happening. So I'm glad at least Hughes is being proactive with Quansah and Konate, and we're not making the same mistakes prior to Hughes coming in, because Hughes is catching loads of flack for Trent, Salah and Virg, and it had nothing to do with him. Yeah. He's basically came in and been told clean that shit up, and that's what he's trying to do. Credit to him. He's sorting Konate out, and he's sorting Quansah out to the future, really. So I'm made up. I think Konate's a brilliant player if he can stay fit, mate. He's kind of in a mould of Van Dijk. Van Dijk's on his own for me in terms of class, but Ibou's really dominant in the air, can bring the ball out, he can spray a pass. So yeah, nothing but good things if we can get that over the line like how we made up.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's a domino effect that starts falling, because you've now secured the future, you're securing one of the two present, and now all of a sudden, if Virgil sits there and sees, oh, my partner in crime here is going to be here for another number of years, this makes my job a whole lot easier. I don't have to go and relearn someone else's tendencies somewhere else, or relearn a new guy's tendencies that's coming in. Similarly to Trent, it gives him that security blanket that I know if somebody gets past me while I'm a little bit higher up the pitch, I've got a brick wall behind me and I don't got to worry about it. Tossin, it's a similar situation. Obviously, we see a lot of people here mentioning that obviously Konate and Virgil are going to get more goals this season from our output from set pieces is getting even better as well. And he's on 70 grand a week at the moment. How do you see him developing further? And is this like the first domino to fall for our lads, at least Trent and Virgil anyway, to stay and find their jobs an awful lot easier?
100%. I think it's a good domino to fall. I said it before that I thought that his contract needed to be extended, because I like the kind of player that he is. I think Ibou is world class from his time at Salzburg. I'd always talked about when he was at Leipzig. I'd always talked about how he's a world class player. Now I've always preferred him to Upamecano. He's phenomenal talent in the defense. It's taking a bit of time to develop and become a better defender, continue to improve. There was something before I was skeptical about him having in his locker in terms of his ability to play those long 60-yard passes that could break the lines like Virgil was always doing. Ibou now has begun to do them as well. You would notice, I think it was against the game before against Wolves. I want to try and remember now, but he did it in those games, and then he's continued to do it on a more consistent basis. and I like the fact that Virgil as well also admitted that he knew that this was a guy that had the potential to be world class. Joel also admitted the same thing, that when they first saw him, they knew that he had the potential to be world class. And I think we're beginning to see that. There were people who were talking about him going to PSG for a bit, and some of us were wondering whether he was going there to eat the baguettes. But we are happy now that he's not. That's not what he's going to do, because he belongs at Liverpool Football Club, and that's one thing we were not able to do in the last 2 decades. We were not able to attract top talent. We were not able to attract players of that quality, and so I think if Ibou stays, it's a sign for Virgil to stay. It's also a sign for a young defender to say, look at that guy and the way he's developed. We become attractive to young centre backs, especially a left-footed centre back. I don't know how we're going to get a left-footed centre back, because that's my concern now. We need that profile, someone that we might not be able to find another person like Ibou, because I think in terms of tackles and in terms of last man duels, Ibou is phenomenal. Good security blanket, just like you said. So I think he will be the first domino to fall, because Trent, if he goes to Real Madrid, I mean, Rudiger is not Ibou Konate. That's just the reality. I think it will take a bit of time for people to appreciate Ibou, but they will begin to see what some of us have seen in maybe a year or two. And I'll be honest, 70k is a little too small for a guy who likes Avatar and likes to play video games like that. He should get a new contract, get a new Fortnite, or he gets to do something with Naruto, and he gives us new celebrations. I'm happy that he's also scored goals too, especially scoring 2 in the last 5 games. It's very important that we continue to work on those set piece routines. I believe that it is because of him that Trent and Virgil are going to extend, because they're going to look at it and say, this guy's staying. I mean, we got to stay. If there was a salary cap, it would have been more interesting, because his salary will give them a bit of room will be able to fit the money in. But I think it helps, and it's the first domino to fall.
Yeah, it is. I think it is the first domino to fall, and I can see the others falling in very soon. And it's just going to be one of them that it's going to take time, but it's going to eventually all fall into place, and then we'll have the big 3, or at least 2 of the 3, locked down for the next number of years. And just before we finish up, we'll move on to just one of the last topics of the day, and that is Richard Dunne on his other countryman, Kelleher. But before we do, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure you have your notifications on for us to stream some videos so that you never miss out as well. Now, Kelleher has been not the stepdad, but the dad that has stepped up on many occasions for Liverpool so far in the last number of years. But in saying that, there has been a number of quotations that have come out from Richard Dunne in the past little while. I'm going to get them up here now, because he has said a whole gaggle of things, and I have them on our Twitter. And I'm going to get them here now, and I'm going to read them out, and we'll have a quick little review of them. And if you have any opinions on these quotations as well, make sure to put them in the chat too. So Richard Dunne has basically said, when I watch Kelleher, I don't notice the difference between him and Alisson. He just makes a move. He must make a move away from Anfield for regular football. There's no question that he's good enough. This was also echoed by our interview with John Achterberg, who was the head goalkeeping coach at Liverpool. They've signed Georgi Mamardashvili, who comes into the side next season, so the writing is a little bit on the wall for Kelleher, unfortunately. It is unfortunate, Kev, that the writing is on the wall for him. He's a number 1 playing in a number 2 position, and it's just shit luck that he's playing behind the best goalkeeper in the world. Now, thankfully, I say thankfully, I don't mean to say thankfully, but in his benefit in the last 2 seasons or so, Alisson has picked up a couple of hamstring injuries that have allowed him to get prolonged playing time. Him and Alisson basically split the games down halfway last season, and Kelleher was the reason for quite a while that we stayed in a title race, because the defense was just like Swiss cheese and letting the ball go through. But Richard Dunne's comments, he doesn't see a difference between Alisson and Kelleher. I'm not so blinded by patriotism that I'd agree with him, but I would say that he's better with the ball at his feet than Alisson, and I think that might even endear him a little bit more to this particular ball playing side with Arne Slot than Alisson would be. what do you see the future holding for Kelleher? Do you see Marmoush coming in and going out in the Premier League loan next season, or is it simply Alisson's injuries are maybe starting to rack up a little bit too much, and it could possibly be that he comes in as the number one next season?
I feel sorry for Kelleher. I think it's great to have a PR man, as what Richard Dunne's become, because I think he needs it, because the lack of clubs that came in for him in the transfer window is absolutely staggering, and it's baffling me how he's not playing regularly as a number one. He, for me, is on par with Araya, Ramsdale, how good Arsenal think that their goalkeepers are. So, for me, he's far better than that, and he deserves his opportunity. I think what we've done is, the only thing I would say about Kelleher is he's got a better injury record than what Alisson's got, and that's probably the only thing downfall that Alisson's got in his locker. He's also good with his feet. I think the problem you got with Kelleher at Liverpool is that when he plays and when he comes in, there are times where there are goals that go in and everyone goes, Alisson would have saved that. And it's a shame, really, because he does well and he plays well. You look at him for Ireland against England, I thought he was Ireland's best player. He was outstanding. And for me, should, kept the goal down to the 2-0 as it was. I thought he played absolutely superb. He needs to move on. He's getting at that age where he needs to move. I think his days are numbered with us, sadly. But he's been fortunate, as you say, is that Alisson injuries means that he steps up. And if you remember rightly, he was in goal when we won the League Cup and won it for us as well with the kids. So there's a lot of good things that Kelleher does, and there's a lot of things I like from Kelleher. But is he a Marmoush? What do you do with Marmoush? I think we bring him. I think he goes on loan like we wanted to do this season at Bournemouth. I think we'll find a similar team for him to go to, and we'll probably have Jarell there, but we'll have the option then to bring him back if needs be, if Alisson gets injured, and that's the way I see it. Sadly, I think he's worth everything of 20 million, if not more. I think he's capable of being in the top 6 side myself personally, and I think he could accomplish more and more achievable. Look how much an Arne's gone for to United, and you look at him and similar to what Kelleher is. I don't think there's a United fan that would actually say that they'd have an Arne over Kelleher. I think Kelleher's well better keeper and far better player. So for me personally, I think sadly he needs to move on. Whether he stays in the Premier League, I don't know, but if he does, it should be. For me, I think he's a top 6 goalkeeper for me personally. But
yeah,
sadly,
it is. It'll be sad to see him go purely, and it's not out of a lack of skill or a lack of want from. It's just right player, wrong time. Because if he gets a good run with us, like the game, who was the last game he played that Liverpool got the clean sheet against? Was it? I'm not sure. It was before Palace or before Wolves, where he just pulled a worldly of a save out of nowhere and cleared it off the line. I can't remember who it was. It ricocheted off Trent's shin and he's just scooped it off the line. For the life of me, I can't remember who it was. Do you know what's going on?
He made 3 great saves that game, lads. Like 3 or 4, to be honest. He was outstanding that game.
Yeah, he's out to any game that I've seen. He's a fantastic shotper, and it's unlucky that he is. That's going to annoy me now until I get actually that game. He's a fantastic shot stopper. Was it Bologna? Hardly was Bologna where he just scooped that off the line at home, because I know we played at home.
I thought it was a Premier League game.
I think it was Bologna,
It must have been, must have been. I don't know why I thought it was a Prem game.
Let me have a look here and I just look at the lineup, because if it is him
at first, I thought it was West Ham, the West Ham game.
No, Alisson was playing against Bologna. So
yeah.
I think it was Bournemouth, the Bournemouth game.
Bournemouth, yeah, that was probably the game. Obviously, Escapado here mentioning it as well. Great name, by the way. It's a great lyrical name. he's nuts, genuinely, and I do feel sorry for him going. It's such a shit situation, but he does. And I said at the start of the season that selfishly I want him to go, but also I don't, because he's a number one playing in a number two position. Jay, like, we obviously seen Forrest try and come in for him and offer Matt fucking Turner and a couple of million quid on top of it, which was just an absolutely insulting offer. But how, like, where do you see him fitting in the Premier League? Does he stay in the Premier League? Does he go abroad? One thing that John Achterberg mentioned was that he could replace Neuer over in Bayern, which would be a very, very good move for him. And he also said that before even Kelleher started playing, he said that Kelleher was already better than De Gea, who was currently starting at United. This was years ago. That's what Achterberg said to us in the interview. Where do you see him going in the future if he is to leave, and how do you see his future unfolding?
The biggest compliments I can pay to Kelleher, mate, and it might sound like Richard Dunne's crazy, to be fair, saying he can't tell a difference. The biggest compliment you can give is sometimes you don't notice Alisson's out when Kelleher plays. I think he's been brilliant for us when he's come in, to be honest. I can't say a bad word about him. He had that stint toward the end of the season when he played, and he let in a couple of poor goals. I think it was against Southampton. And I remember thinking then, is there a bit of him there? But since then, mate, he hasn't put a foot wrong. I find it crazy that Brighton never went for him. Brighton are crying out for a goalkeeper. I'm glad he didn't go to Saints, because they're going to go down. He's better than Saints. No disrespect to Southampton, but Kelleher's better than that, far better than that.
They have Bazunu as well at the moment, so that's why they wouldn't have gone for him.
Oh, sorry.
Gavin Bazunu, the other Irish keeper, who's a little bit younger than Kelleher. Southampton have him.
Oh, no, but he just signed Ramsdale, didn't he? So if you want to sign Ramsdale, you'd sign Kelleher over him. In my opinion, like, you well have Kelleher. But what I mean is, I'm glad he didn't go there anyway, because for me, he's far better. He's better than Vicario at Spurs. So I think Spurs should be looking at him next season. Brighton should be looking at him. When Neuer retires, mate, that's a great shout at Bayern Munich. I think he's good enough, to be honest, to play for... Obviously, you're not going to get in over Oblak or Mannion, maybe at AC Milan, or really rate him highly. Outside of that, mate, name me 5 keepers that are like that much better than Kelleher. There isn't that many. I'm not saying he's like in the top 5 goalkeepers in the world, but there's only a handful of goalkeepers you could name that you'd have over him. So
there's that one tier at the top.
To be honest, mate, I feel like we've shit on him a bit by signing Marmoush. Marmoush's going to be a great goalkeeper, but Kelleher, there's nothing that Kelleher has shown that means he couldn't be the next number one.
Yeah.
And with Ali's injury record, as much as it pains me to say it, I love Alisson, he can stay as long as he wants. I think this might be his last season, you know. And that's why they've signed Marmoush, because they've got an idea of Ali's injury record and stuff. But I felt a bit tight on Kelleher when we signed him, because for me, he's done everything that you'd need to do to become the next number one. And he's just unfortunate that a freak of a goalkeeper's ahead of him in Alisson. It's kind of like if you had Salah and Messi in Messi's prime. Salah's not going to play. Yeah. Messi is. So that's the conundrum he was faced with, but he's done nothing wrong. And if he does go, mate, I wish him nothing but the best. He's been brilliant for us. Can't say a bad word about him.
Yeah, nor can I. And it'd be sad to see him go. I'd honestly, like, there's been times at the season there's been times where I'm kind of like, I don't know why we're even bothering signing the keeper, but I think it's the fact of Kelleher kind of just is like, I want to get my first team football, because he's looking at that Irish squad and he could play in that Irish squad for another 10 years. And Bazunu's kind of been having a shit go of it, and he's getting injured a lot as well. And he's looking at that Irish squad and thinking, the only way I'm going to get into this Irish squad continuously and get more caps for Ireland, which is what he wants to do, is by getting first team football. And, you know, a team that I actually think will go for him next season, you mentioned obviously Spurs and Brighton. I can see somebody like Areola's getting up there in age, and their defense isn't great at the moment. They could do with somebody to play out from the back. United would absolutely cry for him. They'll say they don't want him because he's a Liverpool player, but I can guarantee you, if Kelleher was in that team, the way that they play out from the back, or at least try to play out from the back, they'd be way more comfortable on the ball. Absolutely.
I think anyone looking for a goalkeeper, if a goalkeeper's your priority, Kelleher has to be number one on your list. Whoever you are, if you're aiming to sign a number one goalkeeper, Kelleher should be the top of any club's list that they're looking for. That's the biggest compliment I can pay him. And I hope he gets a good move. I don't want him to just go anywhere. I want him to get a good move that he deserves, because he deserves a great move. He's been brilliant for us.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you'd need to see like what kind of keepers are probably on the way out. You'd wonder about Courtois at Real Madrid, considering his ligament injuries and how he's going to go. And obviously Alisson then with, obviously I don't think Kelleher, imagine Kelleher goes to Madrid. That'd be hilarious. But I think it'll be like, oh, okay, maybe that's the player that goes to Madrid and we keep Trent. Sound, happy days, no problem. Tossin, I'll throw it over to you to finish off the stream for ourselves on Kelleher, of how you see his future going and how we then move forward. Like, do you think the Marmardashvili move was the right one? Do you think Kelleher possibly could have played longer? Do you think Alisson is going next season? I think he could get loaned back to Brazil and just finish the career out there and ride off into the sunset, personally.
Yeah, most likely. I think that's what Ali does. I love Queevy, but my concern with Queevy has always been his height. He's a great goalkeeper. He reminds me of Iker Casillas a lot. Great goalkeepers, but you just always thinking, okay, he's gonna save us in the big moments. But there are some times you're thinking, come on, guys. I mean, we know you're better than that. And Queevy gives me not a lot of those moments because we've not seen a lot of him, but there are times that just sort of there's some times you felt like you're better than that. You're better than that. But because he's not played a lot for us this season, he played a couple of games for us last season. And I'll tell you this, guys. Look, here's the reason why we've not been able to sell him. Clubs are skeptical because they know that he has the qualities to be a number one, but they see him as a number two. And because of that, they don't want to pay the price of a number one. They want to pay the price of a number two. You spoke about West Ham. I mean, everybody and their mama knew West Ham needed a goalkeeper, but I'm not sure this manager's going to be there till next season. He could get the boot, so that means he might not go to West Ham. The club I think suits him the best, this is left field entirely, is Internazionale. I think he needs to go to Milan. Inter's goalkeeper Jan Sommer is up in age. He's exactly the same profile in terms of height and in terms of shot stopping. The only difference is he's better with the ball at his feet. Inter have a long-term plan. They like to sign players on free transfers, so the best thing for him will be to run out his contract at Liverpool or go on loan and then not sign a contract extension with us. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't think there is any Prem club that will be willing to pay a premium, and we're not going to let him leave for pennies on the dollar. That guy we are going to want to get money from him, because now we're going to see him for about 4 weeks, and you're going to see top quality goalkeeping. I know a lot of people have said we have 2 number ones. We're about to have 3 number ones. I don't think we've ever been in that situation where we've got 2 number one choices at any point in time. Maybe I pulled the leg of a colleague on Saturday and said, hey, you see the way Jaros has come on and then he's kept the clean sheet? We have 3 number ones. And he was laughing about that, because I think the job that John Achterberg and the goalkeeping department did in terms of what they did with our goalkeepers, this is the best group in a long time that I think we've had in terms of the confidence I have in our goalkeepers. So when Alisson is injured, not that I'm not bothered, but I'm slightly confident because I know that these guys are quality goalkeepers. So I think if for him, if I'm him, I'll consider Inter Milan. I don't think there is a Premier League club that will be willing to take that punt, because they will all not want to shell top dollar. And if we want to sell in division, we will want to get the most that we can. And for Marmardashvili, I think for a goalkeeper that got 9 saves at the Euros, I mean, top quality guy. Started like a house on fire for Valencia this season as well. and it's been really impressive. I don't think there's a mistake there. I even think if it's possible, if Alisson's injury, if we know the extent of it, we should maybe try to bring his transfer forward.
Yeah, I don't see the transfer coming forward myself. I think it's purely just Kelleher for the rest of the season if Alisson is going to be out long term. A club that I actually see in the Premier League going for him, and I don't think anybody has mentioned, is Newcastle. They want to get rid of Pope. I think Newcastle could actually go for Kelleher. Considering Eddie Howe might be gone by the end of the season, Newcastle could go for him, Brighton could go for him.
Newcastle should include him in the Gordon transfer.
We don't need Anthony Gordon. He can go and shite. We have 2 world-class left wingers currently at the moment that are absolutely tearing it up at the moment and have just basically taken all the Anthony Gordon boys and rubbished it. And Anthony Gordon just signed a new 6-year deal, so that's not happening. In a world of Sundays, that's not happening, unfortunately. So poor Carter is going to have an absolute conniption over that. But we are going to leave it there, guys, for this evening. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We have over 4,000 people watching us this evening. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure your notifications are on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. If you're currently watching over on Twitter or X, as it's known at the moment, please make sure to jump over to our YouTube page. The link is in the bio of our page, and make sure that you jump over for that because lots of content over there. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe over there. But other than that, for myself, Kev, Tossin, and Jay, thank you guys so much for joining us on this Tuesday evening. We will see you guys later and have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.